Welcome, one and all, to the Viper's Nest, where today we talk about HBOs Velma. Alright, right from the outset, I've only seen the first episode, and I'm going to try to review this show in the most objective, logical fashion that I possibly can, because I've been around the internet enough to know that if you level criticisms at anything considered quote-unquote woke, then you get canceled. And, I mean, I've only got 12 subscribers. There's not much to cancel here, but I'd like to keep making videos for my YouTube channel. So I'm going to try to be as logical and objective as I possibly can. So let me put the thing up on the screen. There we go. That, just in case there was any confusion as to what we're talking about, this Velma is what we're talking about. So, I've only seen the first episode, and I've paid no attention whatsoever to any of the press releases or the interviews or anything like that. So I see a lot of things flying around about how Mindy Kaling, I think her name's right up there above Velma. I think it's Mindy Kaling. Might be Mindy Calling. I don't know. Whatever, not the point. But I see a lot of things where it's like, Velma's just her self-insert character in this show. And, I mean, yeah, probably. Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who this person is. So such outside things as that, I guess it's not technically an outside thing, but things like that, I'm going to try not to let have any effect on my review of this show. So, let's get the obvious out of the way first. The changing of Shaggy and Velma's ethnicity and Velma's sexuality, sexual preferences, whatever you want to call that, those have been changed for this show. Now, normally, I would have no issue whatsoever with this sort of thing, so long as such things as that didn't have an effect on the overall plot of the show. That's one thing I think that Netflix Resident Evil did really well when they made Wesker black. It never mattered what Wesker's skin color in the games were, and it really didn't matter in the show, and that allowed them to get an awesome actor like Lance Reddick to play Wesker, which I fucking loved. I reviewed that show a couple videos back. If you would like to check that out, I'd really appreciate it. But yeah, they had a lot of characters who, of various races and sexual preferences, and none of it really had any effect overall on the show itself. Like the lady who was running the Resident Evil Umbrella Corporation town was in a lesbian relationship. She was married to a woman. And I think this got exactly one line of dialogue to reference it, and it was a jokey throwaway line where her son was like, "Oh yeah, I've got two moms, that's why I'm so smooth with the ladies." That's fine, I have no problem whatsoever with stuff like that, and like I said, in Resident Evil, it worked out great. But they made it very, relevant to this storyline that Velma is of, what race even is she in the show? That's how much I've tried to delete this show from my mind, is that I don't fucking remember. Yeah, there's a preface to my review right there. I did not like this show. But yeah, it was literally smacking you over the head that Velma is, I think, bisexual and of a race other than white person. And it didn't come across very well. See, here's the thing. I've consumed a lot of Scooby-Doo over my time. I will straight up admit I've forgotten a lot of it, and some of the stuff I remember really wasn't all that great. And now I've got Clarence, Whisker, do you need to add anything to this conversation? Is that why you're over here? What are you guys doing? What are you doing? If you're going to be over here, you got to say something into the microphone. Come here, Whisker. You got something to say? Say it here. No? Nothing? Okay. Then you gotta go. How about you, Clarence? You want to say something into the microphone? Annie, I was not asking you. Here you go. Here's the microphone. No? You don't have anything to say either? Alright, then get out of here. Uh-oh. A noise happened. We still good? Alright, I think we're still good. Yeah. So, like I said, I don't remember all of the Scooby-Doo I've ever seen over my 33 years of life, and some of the stuff I remember wasn't all that great. But I don't remember once any of the Scooby Gang's ethnicities or sexual preferences being relevant to whatever it was I happened to be watching at the time. So I kind of wish they would have acknowledged it, but not made it relevant here. Because if you're going to be doing something with Scooby-Doo, you need to, it's a good idea to keep a through line with all the Scooby stuff that came before it, because... Clarence! What are you doing, man? One second. Damn it, Clarence. Little shit. One second. Extricating myself from my computer desk. Clarence. Annabelle. Knock it off. You. Get. Leave that alone. It's not for you. Okay, I'm back now. So it's important, like I said, to keep a through line with the characters that came before, because a lot of what came before is really fucking good. Like, a very large portion of America, if not the world, grew up watching Scooby-Doo and getting to know these characters, and now the people have radically altered these characters to the point where they are almost nothing whatsoever like what came before them. Like, the only thing they really have in common anymore at this point, at least as far as episode 1 goes, is that they look kind of like the characters that came before them, but really they are nothing like the Scooby-Doo we have come to know and love. And that is a problem for me. Now, look, okay, devil's advocate here for a second. The characters of the Scooby Gang were not exactly what you would call deep, well-thought-out characters. I mean, but at the same time, they didn't really need to be. They were just characterized enough that, the little kids, like myself back in the day watching them, could understand who and what these characters were about. Like, you had Fred, who was, the boneheaded but ultimately well-meaning leader character. You had Daphne, the very vain character. You had Velma, who was smart but very skeptical. Then you had Shaggy and Scooby, the, lovable cowards with the big appetites. And, for little kids, I mean, that's all you needed to really understand and empathize with these characters. And I do understand that, they fleshed out these characters a little bit more over the very, very long time that Scooby-Doo has been around, but they haven't ultimately changed them a lot. They're still basically the same characters that we grew up watching back in the old times, before the dark times, before the Empire. And now you have these versions of these characters who are so far removed from what they originally were. Like, if you wanted to make a show and you were planning to do characters like this, you might as well have just not involved the Scooby franchise at all and just made something completely on your own, because honestly, I don't fucking like any of these characters in this show. They're kind of god-awful. Like, I don't like any of them. Like, over the course that I watched Velma episode 1, I recall laughing exactly once. And it was at probably one of hands down the fucking stupidest jokes in the entire show. So Velma's dad was eating french fries out of a takeout container. And Velma's like, Dad, you can't just eat old soggy fries out of the takeout container like that. And her dad responds with, I saw you eat a fry out of the vacuum last week, so spare me. I've had a long day. Credit where credit's due, that one got a fucking laugh out of me. I'll admit it. I mean, I am a man of incredibly low standards. And you managed to meet them once. Good job, Velma episode 1. So, I don't like what they've done with the characters. And like I said, I would not have a problem with some of the changes to these characters if those changes did not have a direct impact on the plot and the way the show proceeds. So, let's move on to the show itself. I don't understand what this show is trying to do. Which, that right there is not great. This could also just be down to like my own personal preferences, but okay, I think that Velma is one of those shows that's trying to be very self-aware. So like at the very start of the episode, there's a shower scene, and all the ladies in the shower scene are discussing how ridiculous and like over-sexualizing and overdone shower scenes are. Okay, fair enough. I see where they're coming from. But you are taking pot shots at the very thing that is happening on the screen during the conversation. You know, also now that I start to remember it, these are high school kids. So, I mean, should you really be doing that kind of stuff with kids? Well, I mean, granted they're animated, but with characters that are underaged? Like, I know there's probably some people out there who are into that kind of thing, but I don't know if that should be your target audience here, Velma. Anyway, the whole show is a lot like that. It takes shots at the very thing it is trying to do. Now, there is a way to do self-aware humor. If you want to experience an absolute masterclass in self-aware humor, you need to look at the Deadpool video game, which came out, I want to say, 2013? Where is it? Yeah, hey, I got it right for once, 2013. Yeah, so I will admit that as a video game playing experience, the Deadpool game, it's pretty okay. But the writing and the humor is absolutely top-notch. Literally, the first 5 minutes of the game is Deadpool chilling in his apartment, and you get to do some random stuff that lets you know exactly the kind of video game you're getting in for. Like, there's a bit where Deadpool literally calls up his own voice actor, Nolan North, and they have conversation about how Deadpool should be characterized in the game. The game literally starts off with Deadpool on the phone with either the producer or the director of the people who made the video game, High Moon Studios, and he's like trying to convince the guy to make a Deadpool video game, and initially the guy says no, but then Deadpool sets off a freaking car bomb in front of his office, and the guy calls him back and reconsiders. It's great. It's also very lowbrow, dirty, gross humor, so if that's not your particular cup of tea, stay away from the Deadpool game. But if you're down for stuff like that, play through the Deadpool game. It's so good. And what it does well is that while being very self-aware and taking shots at itself, no particular joke overstays its welcome, except for maybe the bit where you're going through a sewer level and Deadpool, directly addressing the studio, says, "Hey, no more sewer levels." But then there's another sewer level. And then there's also the "you died" / game over screen that you might see a lot and probably will get old, but really I think that's down to more like the skill of the person playing the game than the writing of the game itself. Point is, self-aware humor, it can be done, and it can be done well. In my particular opinion, this show did not do it well. So now, one of the biggest criticisms that this show is trying to be, quote-unquote, woke. You know, I see that term thrown around so incredibly much that honestly, I'm not even fucking sure what it means anymore. But this is another thing. Woke writing, quote-unquote, is also a thing that can be done very, very well. There's a book I read recently, and I'm not going to tell you what it is or who it's by because I don't want people, like the anti-woke groups, if they somehow hear this review, leveling their wrath at this person who authored a very, very good book. I'm sure if you're smart enough, you'll be able to figure out what book I'm talking about, and if you do, go read it. It is so incredibly worth the read. So, This book might be considered woke. It has some things to say about like gender identity and stuff like that, but it does it in a very, very clever way. So I'll give you a preface. So there's a character, the main character. She's female. She is lesbian. She was married to another woman. They have a daughter together. But the main character encountered the age-old conundrum of family versus career. She chose career, and she has ended up very much regretting her decision. So already, right out the gate, you understand that this is a real person, this character, with real person flaws. Like, she fucked up, and now she's paying the price for it, and now is just trying to do the best she can with the situation she got herself into. Because she chose career over family, she's divorced from her wife. Their relationship is in the shitter, and her relationship with her daughter is basically fucking non-existent. So while this person does have what a lot of people considered some woke, quote-unquote, writing, she's also a very real, understandable person with real, understandable flaws. So this book takes place in the far-flung future, where humanity has been among the intergalactic community for a long fucking time now. And, like space flight's a thing, they're hanging out with aliens, yada yada yada. So this woman ends up encountering an android with an artificial intelligence inside of it from like the very, very first early days of humanity going into space. And this AI has been programmed to have a female personality and has been put into an android body with some very exaggerated female features. And the main character, upon first meeting this android, thinks, oh, Jesus, this is fucking barbaric. I can't believe what people did back in the day. And it's like, all right, well, maybe she's being a bit judgy, but we've already established that this character is flawed. Not all of her views are going to be good ones. But as the story goes along and we meet more artificial intelligences and more androids and more alien characters, you start to see this through the lens of the world in which the story takes place. So humans are hanging out with aliens that can have as few as 1 genders, as many as like 7 genders, or they can flip-flop between genders whenever the hell they want. So like gender identity boundaries, in that universe, that's been out the fucking window for like ever. And we meet more AIs, and AIs are fully sentient beings. For all intents and purposes, they are people, except mostly in the physical sense, because AIs are made of data and exist in computer space, essentially. They can hop into, essentially, like avatar bodies to do things in the physical universe whenever they need to, but they're not tied to those specific bodies. So, being that, not only do they exist in a galaxy where gender boundaries are essentially non-existent, AIs, they're beings composed of data. They don't reproduce like biological beings, so honestly, what the fuck do they even need with a gender in the first place? Like, some AIs choose a certain gender, like either permanently or simply to help them interact with, an organic physical being. In that particular instance, they can be like, yeah, so I'll just be female for this conversation because that'll make the conversation easier, whatever. So having seen all of this throughout the book, you look back at that first little bit with the early human spaceflight android and realize, wow, yeah, humans not only forced this fully sentient person into being the gender that they wanted this AI to be, then they essentially stuffed her permanently into an android body that also forces it to conform to the gender that the humans of the time wanted it to be, essentially for their own amusement and comfort. And like looking at it through the lens of the universe being presented, you start to understand like, wow, that is a really fucked up things that humans did, isn't it? That is actually terrible. And the genius about this writing is the author of the book didn't come out and like smack you over the head with this view, kind of like, HBO Velma does. The author very cleverly laid out all of the pieces of the puzzle for you, and then was counting on you, the reader, being smart enough to put those pieces together for yourself. Like, not only is that just a great way to present quote-unquote woke views, I guess, it's also just really fucking good writing. Like, that, I was like literally 3/4 of the way through the book before I finally figured out what the author was trying to tell me about this early android, and I was like shocked I didn't put it together sooner, but then I also appreciated the writing that eventually, slowly and naturally, led me to seeing the conclusion that the author wanted me to see in this particular instance. Point is, does Velma episode 1 do this? No. No, it doesn't. It takes its, God, I hate myself more and more for using the word, but the quote-unquote woke agenda and is literally beating you over the head with it. Like, it's going, like, okay, let's take HBO Velma's Fred for a second. Fred, I feel possibly the most offended by, probably because I'm also a straight white male, which, you know, in today's day and age, is apparently not the greatest fucking thing to be anymore. But, God, they made Fred, like, just a fucking idiot. Like, he doesn't even know how to cut his own food. Like, he's so... Like, they went, like, the white privilege route with Fred. Like, he is so privileged that he has, like, literally everything done for him to the point where he doesn't even fucking know how to function on his own. It's like... I do understand that there are probably people of the white male persuasion out there who are rich, who have people doing a lot of things for them, but you would have to, like, go out of your way to be as fucking dumb as Fred is in this show. And it's, like, I guess going back to the start of the video, Fred was never like that. Sure, Fred was kind of stupid. He did some really fucking boneheaded stuff. But also, like, you know, that was part of the characters. Like, sometimes it was fucking Fred being Fred who got them into trouble in the first place. You know, fair enough. Like, it's not bad writing or anything. That's just Fred being Fred. That's the Fred that Fred needs to be for the little kids to, you know, understand and enjoy the show. And you know, it's a vehicle for the plot of the old Scooby-Doos is that sometimes Fred is stupid. Yes, we get this. But Fred has never been that stupid. And I can't really think of any character in any kind of even mildly serious media who was that incredibly dumb. It's, God, it's fucking galling. I need to take a drink for a second. My mouth is running dry. Anyway, so I guess back to what I was saying about the quote-unquote woke agenda of the show. The show, very obviously trying to be woke. They're very obviously trying to be inclusive of anybody and everybody while weirdly also taking shots at anyone and everybody. Because it's not just white, straight, male, privileged Fred that suffers the brunt of this honestly terrible characterization. It's everybody in the show. I did not come across one singular character that I actually liked. Like, the closest I got was with Shaggy. And even then, like, I hesitate to call him Shaggy because character-wise, again, he is so far removed from the lovable coward Shaggy that we've all come to know and love over the years that he's not even Shaggy anymore. And I kind of hate it. I mean, I don't kind of hate it. I do hate it. I loathe what this show is doing to characters that I, like, spent my entire life watching. Like, they don't need to be these stupid, unlikable dickheads. That's not what Scooby-Doo is about. Like, really, Scooby-Doo, like, look, it's about the adventure. Like I said, the characters starting out way back in the days, they weren't super deep characters. Also, but they didn't need to be super deep characters. They didn't need to have these, like, weirdly dark backstories that this show is trying to give them. You needed to let them be themselves because they didn't need super deep characterization because it was really the writing of the episodes on a, like, an individual basis and the performance of the voice actors who really made the characters as great as they are. And even when they did get fleshed out, in the later years, that, like, as much as it was appreciated, it didn't really need to happen because that's not what the show is about. The show is about the zany adventures these characters go on. That you just need to know and empathize and love these characters enough to be like, oh, well, what kind of zany adventures are they going to go on today? Are they gonna like chase down a pirate ghost? Are they gonna hang out with John Cena? Are they gonna hang out with Sam and Dean Winchester? What sort of wacky adventures are they gonna go on? And then you just needed to sit back and enjoy the characters being the characters, going through these crazy wacky adventures where they hang out with John Cena and the Winchester bros. Like, that's what Scooby-Doo is to me. It's about the fun of these characters just being these characters in this setting. And on the whole, I fucking love it. I mean, yeah, there were some bad periods. I mean, we don't need to fucking talk about Scrappy, do we? But the point is, I never stopped loving these characters as they were, just being themselves on the wacky, crazy adventures where, I mean, pretty much always in the end, it was like, oh, it was Mr. Cripsley, the Crypt Keeper, and then, oh, I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids and their dog, and then yay, fucking good times were had by all. Did I feel bad at any point in the series? No, because it's Scooby-Doo. I know they're not gonna fucking, like, die or anything. There's not gonna be any world-shattering revelations put forth in this episode. It was a silly cartoon adventure that made me laugh like I laughed when I was a little kid, and that's what Scooby-Doo is to me. Just, it's fun. Scooby-Doo is fun. And Velma, this show really just, it took the fun out of Scooby-Doo. Yeah, how do you do that? Why would you do that? I don't fucking understand this show. That's where I'm going to rate it. I'm going to rate it at an I don't fucking understand out of 10. Anyway, we're getting close to 30 minutes, so I should probably stop. But, yeah, I didn't like episode 1, and I didn't like it to the point where I don't want to watch the rest of them. I feel like I probably should. Like, maybe some small part of me holds out hope that it's going to get better, but I don't really think it is, and that makes me fucking sad. Jesus. This show makes me sad. Like, I wish I had some kind of high note to end the show on, but you know what? I have kittens running around in the living room. That's the high note we're going to end on. I looked over and I saw kittens running and wrestling. That makes me feel a little bit better. Alright, so, well, if you stuck around this long, thank you for listening. Leaving a like and a subscribe would sure be appreciated. I'd like to see your thoughts in the comments. If you have something that can prove me wrong about this show, please let me know. I would love to be proved wrong about this show. Alright, well, I'm gonna go. Thank you for listening. See you next episode, and as always, have a wonderful day.